I think that music's starting to become ingrained in my brain. Sometimes when I'm laying in bed and I'm thinking about the live stream in the morning, I hear it.
That's funny. That is funny. Just becomes part of your, just seared into your mind.
Oh, here's a crazy story. So let's start with a side quest today.
Okay, yeah.
So when I was younger, I played a lot of a game called Diablo 2.
Oh, yeah.
And so in college, I went in for computer networking, but it was kind of like a crash course in all things computers. One of them was operating systems. And I learned about Linux. I was like, oh, this is cool. I don't need to use a CD key. Like, it's free. What is this? So I downloaded that and I was like, oh, I can't play my games, but there was this thing called Wine. And so I figured out how to install Diablo 2 on my Ubuntu distro on my laptop, my college laptop.
Wow.
It was like some kind of like low-end Dell consumer laptop, but I was able to play it. And I had played that game so much that because notoriously something wouldn't work on the hardware with the distribution, right? So the sound, I couldn't get the sound to work for whatever reason. It was a skill issue, I'll admit, definitely a skill issue with Linux for me. But it was the first time I installed it. But I could hear all the sounds that the character would make, the spells would make, that the creatures would make without a sound card. Like it was that ingrained in my mind. So hundreds of hours, probably.
Oh, that's so funny.
Anyway.
Do you know the thing about like not sensory deprivation chambers, but the like, I guess they're kind of like it, but the fully silent acoustic chambers, where
kind of like I've done a float tank before, where you're kind of in a pod and it's all dark and there's no like nothing.
Yeah, is like that.
Okay.
It's kind of like that, but just for sound, and it works even stronger. So you're not just like happily floating and there's like a little bit of sound. No, it's like a complete acoustic dampening chamber where every single sound is like reflected. It's so quiet that you begin hearing your own heart pounding. Ooh. And that becomes like the only thing you can hear, because you make a sound, it doesn't like go anywhere, like nothing happens. So all you can hear is like within yourself. And at some point, like I believe people start to like hallucinate, because like you're not supposed to like not,
any stimulus. Yeah, your brain, your body and mind probably don't know how to react in that situation, so that it makes up things to make it feel better.
Yeah, people can't like be in a room like that for more than like 20 minutes or something, I believe.
Yeah, I would
okay, get me the fuck out. Kind of feels like, you were like so tuned into the game that you just like in your mind just
just I knew everything. It was funny. So
fun.
Okay.
I have to show you this. I mean, I showed you this, but I have to show everyone else this. It is my webcam working, my secondary webcam working. So now I get to show Naughty Cat.
and you've revealed a true reason.
Yes, that is right.
Why you have a minimalistic keyboard, so there's space to work.
Before, it was my keyboard would be like this, and it'd be like pushing my cat over to like get her off my keyboard, and like my mouse and like paws jumbled in cables or whatnot. Not great. Now we just work around the cat. You see, she's making herself comfortable. She's realigning, repositioning, and that's okay. And we just work around it. Nice little split keyboard. Little glass of water, a little notebook somewhere, it's good.
Very nice. It's inspiring. I need to, I've been wanting to up my skills, or I don't know, my environment, just change the environment, do some new things. Got a new desk though. Maybe someday I'll get a fancy camera and you can be able to see mine.
Yeah. I mean, cool. It'd be fun. Multiple camera angles.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Would be fun if I don't have a stream deck anymore, but like just pressing a button like cat cam. Wow. Right now it's like menus and
you can get all fancy and look whenever is it a she?
Yeah.
Whenever she moves, that it would switch automatically, like motion detected.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes,
let's complete that side quest. Let me share. Let's do an entire screen here. Let's do screen one. All right, so we kind of did a little planning session yesterday. And we kind of settled on using the Rust Hello world. And so the first thing that we wanted to do, what we were talking about right before we started, was what would be the best way to demonstrate the deployment methods? Because we've gone through a couple of them through the samples, and now we want to take something that we've built. Looks like you and Aaron have done some good work in this repo.
Yes.
where you've got a working component, and it's deployable with a container. So we did that probably one of the first 10 streams, probably one of the first 5 streams. We kind of walked through
Yeah.
how we could get it to work in a container, so you can just use components essentially as a container. Um, but we also have been dabbling in Spin and Wasm Cloud. Um,
Mhm.
so those different deployments. Thinking that each different deployment method would be a separate repository. Was that kind of your? So we'd have an application repository, and then we'd have separate ones for different ways to deploy. So one would be like Wasm Cloud to Azure. One would be,
Mhm.
or maybe even Wasm Cloud to its or Spin to Spin's platform. Like we could do a lot of
You
things there, but
your mic is doing something funny. I don't know if it's your
weird.
connection, but it kind of feels like it's kinda cutting out a bit at times.
Maybe maybe I'm getting too far away. Does it do it when I move it around?
No, I was just confused. I'm just yeah, I don't know what it is.
I had that issue yesterday. I think I might have to temporarily go back to the Beastie Tower. I think it's my dock.
Ah,
Because I removed the USB hub and everything's plugged into the dock, but my camera works now, and now my microphone has issues.
interesting.
So it could be that.
'Cause there was like a little static crackle, like very very minor, not very noticeable, and then your mic sort of felt like a drop in quality, and I was like,
Okay.
"Huh,
Did it restore? Is it better now?
I think so."
Okay. Okay. Well, let me know if it happens again, and I'll check cables and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully, I don't have to switch over
Yeah,
midstream to
I
different device, but
I think you're fine now. I think you're fine.
maybe it's just the internet. I don't know. Let's see here. I like to
The
draw.
internet? What's the
Yeah,
internet?
all the internet is
Oh,
just an issue. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's get some rectangles.
all right.
Well, actually, I want a cylinder.
What's your favorite geometry?
Oh, so here's a funny story about me. I failed geometry, but I got an A in physics, which
Okay.
didn't make a lot of sense to me because the math and physics was way harder. I just despise geometry. I don't know why.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Kind of feels like it doesn't quite check out. I wish I could say like, oh, so you're good at time, but not so good at space or something, you know?
It was probably more that geometry was the last session of the day before I had to go and do football practice,
Mm.
and I was just anticipating being drained, so I would decide to sleep in geometry. That's probably more the factor. Let's see here. So we've got our app.
I feel like you are working up to like Midwestern like stereotypes. Do you by any chance like also drive a truck?
I don't, but I would like to buy one.
Because I was like, what are we hitting? Like, you were like, oh yeah, I took a week off. I like had to like repave like my thing. I'm like, okay, DIY, we got that. You're like, you do football practice. I'm like, okay, one more. Like,
I wrestled. I wrestled in high school.
there we go. There we
I
go.
did
Yeah.
jujitsu for a little while before the pandemic. I mean, the flannel, it's a shirt maybe gives
Yeah,
away.
yeah, yeah.
How is that?
I guess
You
we're
got
matching there.
me. You got me.
That's funny.
I haven't gotten
All
to
right.
the point where I'm old enough to care a super duper a lot about my lawn.
Oh.
Like that's a Midwestern thing that gets you got to be like 50 plus for that to really matter.
Mm. You may be Midwesterner, you're not yet a boomer, you
I
know?
guess so. Yeah, crossing generational uh, divides. Let's see here. Deploy one.
Yes.
There we go. Something like you're thinking something like this with these different repos.
I don't know.
Well, that's our starting point. So I can kind of give some. Can I change the color? Yes. I want you to be.
So the arrows to me imply a form of directionality.
More so that the application is going to be used. So like these would probably be pushed to repository. What would be a good icon for repository? Like a registry container. Let's test. Yeah, something like this. All right, so if we move these down, I don't move my lines. That's unacceptable. There we go. It's more like this. Give me a line. So app, some kind of OCI artifact, then these pull down said artifact. That's more accurate. You know?
Yeah.
So that's probably a better
Oh, I
visual.
like that. Yeah.
Um,
And then there's not just like a singular app, but we would say there's a Rust app, there's a .NET app.
okay, so this would be Rust.
We don't have a .NET app, but at some point we should build one. It's not quite there yet.
Okay.
So
Or a Go or something. Okay. And so you more or less just want a way to demonstrate like how to pull all those different languages into a deployment.
Yeah, for now, Rust is the first along, and it's also the language I am most comfortable with.
Mhm.
So I think we just have the Rust app. But as the other languages mature and like get up to speed, we extend it, and we're like, okay, great, we have our existing deployment. Now let's show you how to do the Go version of this or the .NET version.
Okay. There's going to be one common denominator across all these deploys because there's a first step from the infrastructure side, which would be the provisioning. So we would need some kind of tool like Terraform, TF for short for Terraform, because said infrastructure is going to have to exist before you can deploy, and then the deployments will determine what infrastructure needs to be there. So, like, say we had one that was just going to use everything native on Kubernetes and not use any particular cloud services, like a KMP or anything like that. Then all we would need from Terraform is to deploy the cluster on whatever provider. It could also be maybe a local thing, and then you could have a make file that maybe spins up like a kind cluster or something. So we'll have to decide what we want that to be. It could even be shared. Like all these deployments go to an AKS cluster, but one's using Spin, one's using Wasm Cloud. So
I think it would be nice if we had. I don't know exactly how we want to divvy this up, but we make sure that people can take isolated examples. Or if someone says, hey, let me set up my kind cluster locally, then here's how I set this up. And then great. I am working with, I don't know, Python developers. Great. Let me take the Python sample app. Let me take the kind cluster deployment. Let me put these two together and see how that works. And then, okay, actually now I'm good with kind. I see that works. Now let me upgrade to the AKS one. Or let me like take, different cloud providers, different things, but they can reuse the samples. And so it becomes an end-to-end sort of mapping of things.
So I can give you some context for typically the design patterns from an infrastructure side, what typically happens.
Okay.
So there's two ways to go about it, and some of it's a little bit philosophical. But you either have the infrastructure code and like like basically everything inside of a single repository. So let's do a big rectangle over all of it and remove the fill. I feel like I'm channeling my inner Thor right now with all my diagrams. Let's see here. Can I send this backwards?
What's the equivalent of Paint for macOS?
I don't know. Is there a Paint-like app on here? I don't know.
Maybe
Draw or something? Draw. Although I wish it was with my great-grandmother's computer. I was probably 7 or 8, and I drew the most fantastic Charizard in MS Paint. I spent about 4 hours on it. Windows.
I don't know what to say, man. I'm happy for you. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So next time, if my name comes up, you'll be like, "Do you know
Oh yeah.
that he's the world record holder for the best Charizard in MS Paint.
It's
That's my sense of humor, is to be like super serious, and it's pretty hard for people to tell when I'm joking, especially if they don't know me very well. Um, so that's
I
something
do
I
think
would
it's
leave
funny.
with. Maybe I'll introduce myself next time I get to speak. Like that'll be my
Josh Duffney, artiste.
artiste, Charizard artist or something like that.
Charizard
Instead of me,
artiste.
there we go. There we go.
Hey.
So this would be like method 1. Where's my text? Move you up here. So what we could do is, as we build out the apps and the different versions inside their repositories, there could be, everything. It could all be wired up in a workflow inside the sample.
Mhm.
So there could be Terraform. We could choose to use Bicep, whatever we want to do there. So some kind of infrastructure as code to provision.
Yeah.
And then the deploy is most likely going to be Kubernetes manifests. And then from there, we could choose Wasm Cloud for the Rust example and Spin for the .NET example or whatever, and it would give us different variants. So that's method 1 would be to put it all together. And there would be a little bit of duplication of the infrastructure code, which I think does a better job of telling the whole story for a particular language.
Mhm.
And then you have method 2, which is often used for like SRE teams or infrastructure teams, where it doesn't matter what the application is, because all they're basic. So a new word for this would be the platform team.
Mhm.
Um, this would be method 2. Let's put that in parentheses. Platform team. The platform team method. Let's move it down a little bit. Where you essentially are removing. I thought I sent you backwards. You just have this stuff where you would
Yeah.
have deployment 1 and 2. Actually, the deployments would be completely out of here for the most part, but basically one team handles all this, and we'd have all the infrastructure stuff in a repo for each thing. This, I think, is easier to follow along, because if you're a Rust developer and you want to learn how to create a WebAssembly component, I can take you through, or we could take you through the entire journey. Whereas if we go this way, you're like, here's the app, and then go and try and figure out this purely infrastructure thing, and then like pull down your container. So what usually
You
happens here
think?
is all the apps are just in a registry somewhere, and then inside here in the deployments we would reference those. But there's nothing else that the platform team cares about other than the artifact that was published. Does that
I
make sense?
feel. I Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know if I fully agree with you though. I feel like at least this may be like a subjective thing, but at least the second one feels a lot closer, or like it just makes more sense to me, because I rarely what I rarely see um, is a single app, like in actual like code bases, right? Like company code bases, a single app that encompasses both infrastructure and the actual code,
You mean
right?
a repository?
Yeah, they typically tend to be like split up. Like any company above like 10 people, they will split it up. If it's like under 10 people and you have like a mono repo and it's like a single thing and everything's together, yeah, sure. People like put everything together. But as your team or company grows, like that is one of the first things you split up. Once your company is at a certain size, every team has an ops person, right, running the ops side of things, infrastructure, et cetera, and the developers are on the other side, right? And you work together, but you specialize. And so
Yeah, that
sort of
model's like this.
And so I feel like if we can target like one end of the story towards developers, where it's like, hey, here's how you develop the thing, and the terminal thing where you like care about is making sure you have an OCR artifact in a registry. And you're like, okay, great, because with Docker, that is the final thing I need to do is build the Docker container. Right now, we're just going to build a component instead of the container. And then for the operators, it's like, okay, great. All you need to know is we're working with OCI things here. Now let's talk about a deployment story, and that works together in a way that I think should work well. or at least it makes sense in my brain. I don't know. Maybe I'm like weird here.
I think it's logical from like a developer's perspective. Like you want to keep app code with app code and infrastructure with infrastructure code.
Yeah.
Let's see here, devs. So this would be. I don't know why this is not moving to the back when I tell it to. We'll get rid of it. Like app. Well, this would be like OCI, right? So in the model that you're talking about, it's kind of like this. It usually is this. We have our infrastructure team / platform team. Old school would be infra platform. And then we'd have our DevOps. The DevOps team, our release engineers would be like the first iteration of that. They're responsible for the deployment, right? So you actually have 3 teams most likely in that model.
Okay.
So we'd have like 3 different deployments. So the dev team, like all they care about is like, hey, I built my app. It's this artifact or it's this zip file. It's this whatever. That gets handed off to release team. The release team is the one that shepherds it through and has some knowledge of both domains. And then the infrastructure team's like, well, I put the server there and you deployed something and broke it. Let's figure out what you broke. So, I mean, yeah, that's how a lot of organizations operate in this model.
Okay. I guess like because I am a developer, I don't even like know the difference between the infra team and the DevOps team.
Oh, sure.
It's
So,
like
so there's a lot to do with, so like your infrastructure in an enterprise, like you have so many different facets. You've got your network layer, you've got your
right.
storage layer, you've got usually even operating systems split between because there's so much domain expertise in setting up a Windows environment with Active Directory and all that in a Linux environment. So like even in infra, there's a bunch of sub teams, just like you would in an application. You might have an auth team, you might have like a cache team over here, you might have these different things, right? Or like this particular product and this particular product, devs are separated like that in their domains of expertise. And then the DevOps team, sometimes it's the infrastructure team, but this is where this kind of like, let's put devs and ops together. The whole notion of DevOps is the deployment phase. And so there's a lot of tools. One that I really liked that I use a lot is Octopus Deploy. And so their job begins in the CI/CD DevOps engineers. And it's purely about like, how do we automate the release of this deployment? So they're the ones most likely creating the manifest for Kubernetes because they have enough infra experience to say, I know what Kubernetes is. You need some storage here. You need to have this deployment. You need to have these replicas, this many replicas, so forth. But they're responsible for getting those artifacts deployed properly and automated on to whatever the environment is. Now, a lot of times, like in the past, it would be just infra and dev, like working together to try to do that. And so this was like like the pizza team type thing. But that's a model I've worked the longest in. This could also be SREs, because you usually have some super knowledgeable SMEs about like the network stack or whatever else that don't have any idea how to.
What are SMEs?
Like subject matter expert.
Okay.
Like a CCIE, which is the highest level Cisco standard, or like wizards at networking and packets and stuff, all that goodness. So it depends on your company size, like how fractured or how many things. But so if we wanted to try to model that in our repositories, I think that's totally fine. But it does make the infra kind of an empty repository because you're really just going to have a Terraform folder with some infrastructure set with some sets to deploy the infrastructure, and then you're going to have like essentially just one Kubernetes manifest to deploy the hello world application. So then the workflow could just depend on an OCI artifact being available somewhere. Like really, that's all. That's the only dependency from this down here to these two.
Yeah.
So you could, it just would be a rather empty repository,
I think they're like, even if it's like not the biggest repo, they're like, we have noticed a bunch of like open questions, right? We setting up, for example, Wasm Cloud, assuming we're going to go with WASM Cloud for this, which I think right now is a safe one. Um, like setting up WASM Cloud is not automated, so there'd be some of that. Integrating it with the Azure load balancer, we haven't figured out yet, so that would be like another thing. There are like a bunch of like setup steps that feels like it is like very infra oriented. And once that's live, I don't even like know how we're like gonna do Flux, but like once all of that's live, then yeah, you're right. But I feel that that is substantial enough that's like worthwhile
Hmm.
um, covering.
Well, if you wanted to get ops,
Yeah.
what would be the difference there? I suppose you could do it in a separate repo. Um, because so what that allows you to do is monitor the GitHub repos change, essentially the change log, and then whenever it detects a change in a particular area that you mentioned, say like for example, this would be the image property or field in a Kubernetes manifest for the WASM component. I think they call it an app in WASM Cloud. So for that WASM app, if
Mhm.
that changed,
Mhm.
if that tag changed, then it would trigger a workflow, and then that workflow would carry you through and deploy. So, but it could also trigger off the workflow that is publishing the OCI artifact as well. So,
I would like it to like have some sort of watching relation. So again, I'm sort of like, here's how my brain understands these things and how they ought to work. Um, where it's like the infra monitors the changes in the artifact store, and either the artifact store knows to like send it a signal because it says like, hey, this thing is watching it, or it like, there's some way where this responds to that. I believe that that is the job of Flux, right?
yeah, Flux will monitor your GitHub, but you have to tell it what it needs to be worried about, like what files and what things in the files.
Mhm.
Um, can it watch a repository? Because essentially, what we're saying in this example is we're not wanting to monitor the GitHub repository, but instead the registry.
Yes.
So when the registry has a new, I know that there's another add-on for that. I think I wrote a blog post a while ago about that where it
Right.
can watch the repository and grab the latest. Um,
Here's
from
the
there.
other thing why I'm thinking of like, hey, a repo per for like infra separately, because we may, for example, want to start with WASM Cloud as like, hey, we've tried both Spin and WASM Cloud. We got further with WASM Cloud, so it feels like okay, let's keep going with that one. But eventually, Spin will. I just came off a call with like some folks, and they were like, yeah, no, Spin seems to be like adopting more of these standards. They are moving over. So at some point, we said like, okay, great. Now let's do the infra for Spin to show you how to like deploy a Spin based app on AKS, and we get to like redo the entire like set of like things that we did just for WASM Cloud. But that way, it's M to N mapping, M languages to N deployment targets or setups.
Hmm. Well, I think that's kind of the beauty of Kubernetes, because once the infrastructure, so like this step right here will be the same for any deployment method we have that is deployed to Kubernetes. So there will be a
Oh,
cluster that's a cluster. Like there won't be anything
okay.
really we need to change there unless they require some add-ons or extensions or to modify the cluster. That would be the only time we would touch this. But from what I've seen of Spin and WASM Cloud so far, that same cluster would support both deployment methods, and the only thing that would change is the manifest that's deploying the app. You would change it from Spin inside the Kubernetes manifest to WASM Cloud, and they would use the same OCI artifact potentially if Spin accepted the standards, right? Like if Spin adopted the standards, then both of those would, that same
The
image would
OCI
work for both.
standards.
Yes, yes. When that comes.
Okay.
I don't have any particular issue with it. I think that would be fine. Like a
Okay.
separate infrastructure repo, and then work through the rest. Um, it would be, so this is a neat story to tell though with WebAssembly in general, is if we have a separate infrastructure repository that deploys the simple hello world,
Mhm.
um, it won't. We could use we could basically override the OCR artifact or create different ones and update the manifests, and it won't change because we could. There's no way that like we couldn't just. So if we did this the other way to give kind of the inverse of it, if I did an ARM or an AMD, change the architecture type of my container image, it would break
Yes.
because
Right.
my cluster doesn't provide that functionality. But no matter what language we do to create our OCR artifact for the hello world in WebAssembly, the deployment will always work.
Yes.
So that would be a cool thing to demo.
Even beyond that, like, yeah. Hold on. I'm like, even beyond that, things I am unsure if I can say, but I think there are more good reasons for that. Oh, here's one. Yeah. Say we would like want to show a Nginx demo, or like here's how you like do a bare deployment using just WASM time. We can like spin those up again. And it's like just more and more and more. The end-to-end mapping, it's just so appealing to me. I'm basically agreeing with you.
Okay, so what we want to go back to the drawing board is we have these apps. Repo. Azure repos. Icons are important to me. I like icons. We'll just pick this one. I can't really see it, so we'll change the color. Pinkish purple. Nah.
Okay.
We'll just use this because I know that means Git. So this would really be our infra repo.
Okay.
Right? Is that what we're kind of coming to?
Yeah. And maybe the way I was thinking about it is not just a singular infra repo. We can have a singular infra repo, but like one that is like WASM cloud on AKS. Then a second one that is spin on AKS. A third one that is whatever the local thing was. Maybe one Nginx on AKS to like show the bare server deployment method.
Gotcha.
And then if there are other clouds available who are like, hey, we would like to reuse these same sample apps, then they can be like, hey, hello, we're other cloud provider doing this other thing.
Trying to think. The only tricky part would be the triggers between the two repos. We'll have to figure that out because we won't have the same. If this is all together, like say WASM Cloud was with Rust, inside our GitHub workflows, it would be very easy to say after publish, we're going to run said step. So we'd have to find some kind of way to monitor that. But I mean, it depends on how far we want to go with it for the example, like what our intent is with the demo, like kind of back to square one with our chats over here. Like what it is that we want to capture in that repository that people could use, like that would be useful for people essentially in these repos.
Absolutely.
So
we don't have to start there either, right? We could start by hard coding it and be like, hey, just deploy this thing. Future step, we integrate like a full GitOps flow. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, on stream we could kind of even work through what we did before, just run it with AZ commands and then eventually convert them over. That's honestly like my iterative process is like get it working.
Nice.
Through the port, preferably with some kind of scripting, and then translate that scripting to infrastructure as code, and then take that and put it into a workflow. So then you kind of each stage you're removing more and more clicking.
translate the translate the script into code is what I heard there. I was like, that's funny. I know what infrastructure as code means, a very specific thing with like Terraform and stuff, but
Mhm.
you know,
Oh, a lot of people like so like all the project that I've been working on, Ratify, a lot of their integration tests use bats, like bash something testing, automated testing, I think.
oh yeah,
So like it sets up the whole infrastructure, tests everything with shell scripts. So
wow.
fun to
Wasn't
debug.
there like a company that like had an actual like code thing? I forget what it's called.
It escapes me. Terraform has its own
Yeah,
testing framework.
yeah. I can't recall the name of the company,
That's
but
right.
there was one that was like, hey, what if we like gave you like an SDK for every single language, so you can like,
Lumi?
I think so.
No, that
Palumi.
Lumi. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've never worked with it. I've always heard good things.
My understanding was that they were like, hey, declarative stuff is okay, but you kind of just want like actual scripts. Here's like a bunch of SDKs that are like,
Well, they bring it closer to the developer experience. It looks much more like a language, or you can put it in
yes,
your actual language code.
yeah,
Which it's funny. I've changed my opinion a little bit. Where, like when I was purely on the infrastructure side,
mhm,
I'd hear developers say like infrastructure is code. It's not code. Like
right,
it's like, what do you mean it's not code? It's code. Like it runs. It's written in
mhm,
a DSL
mhm,
potentially. But now that I've written some more like other code with the code and stuff, I'm like, it's not the same. You know,
yes,
it's not as easy to just ask a developer to pick up like Terraform or Ansible
mhm,
than it is for them to pick up like switch from like Python to Go or something. It's the
yeah.
different rules, different things.
What always tripped me up is like Terraform. I've struggled to make it feel reliable. Like like over the years, every single configuration, it feels like it'll have like spurious failures in a way that seem unrecoverable, and I'm like, I don't know how to fix this. Or you like click through the UI and you're like, oh, actually, okay, I automate like 80% of it. Let me like figure out the next step or something. And then it's like a thing completely out of sync. And you're like, oh, I can't, like, how do you iterate? How do you?
This is how. First try.
Yep.
First try.
Great.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, just like welcome to the infrastructure world.
I'd like a
It's there's so much going on underneath that with like the cloud provider and like
yes.
everything else, all the services, especially if you got a complex deployment. Um, yeah,
It
that's
just
tough.
doesn't
I
feel
ran
like
into
it.
that yesterday where go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say, like, it doesn't feel like it should be that way. Like, this doesn't feel inherent to the problem. This feels like, I say, it could be improved. I'm not an expert, so
No,
maybe I'm
I don't
wrong, but
disagree.
yeah.
I don't disagree. Okay. Hmm. So I guess we could just pick like Wasm Cloud and get the Rust Hello working, and then we could take that into
Yeah.
a code base. I suppose that's totally fine. I'm just trying to think about how would that make a good template from a repository perspective.
Let's maybe not worry about the template yet.
Yeah.
Let's do what you mentioned and write a bash script or something with AZ commands
Okay.
that we can automate it, and then we can like sort of go from there.
Okay. So let's look at the hello world. What do we got here? We got about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I feel like we can make some progress here. And I
Yes.
appreciate the comment on my drawing. That made my day. So thank you for that. I'll use more colors next time. I'll spice it up with some Bob Ross or something. Let's see here.
Lovely. If you want my painting style, it's use a light gray or like a kindly faded out white, and then neons, lots and lots of
Lots and
neons.
lots of neons.
Oh yeah,
Let's see. Okay. I'll go into here.
I was really proud of my slide deck for the Plumbers Con, where
Yeah, yes, that was good. It's stylish.
I've started like dialing in like my style like for slide making. with the little neon highlights everywhere.
That's excellent.
Thanks.
Let's just take a look at the repo. So it looks like you've already got an OCI artifact.
Yep.
So I don't need to do anything with the repository. I would just need to be able to pull this, which I should be able to, assuming Docker login isn't logged in with invalid credentials. We've learned that before.
Or any of the other 17 like was it
Variants of failure.
or yeah.
Okay. And you've got a dev container, so if I wanted to run that, I trusted it builds and runs.
Yep.
So what would we need if we go to WASM Cloud? I did like their docs, by the way.
Yeah.
Build. Kubernetes, GitHub Actions. Oh, they have actions. First, we need installation. So one thing that so if you want to do the local, that might actually be a good replacement for just doing WASM time locally. Is you could show in the cluster, like you would do one of these to like show this, or Docker Compose if you wanted to stick with Docker. Where's the AKS platform overview? We'll find it. Search. Azure. Kubernetes. There's what I'm looking for. So do I just need any cluster? That's okay. So this assumes that we have the cluster. So if we look at AZ, is this font size okay? Or I can probably bump it up one more.
It's legible to me, but I'm on a widescreen monitor. If people are like watching on their phone or iPad or something, maybe a little trickier. Yeah.
Okay, we'll bump it to that. And I'm going to cheat. Give me the AZ AKS command to deploy AKS cluster. Node count, generate SSH keys. Oh, do I have Terraform for this? I do somewhere. Because I don't think we needed any external services. No, we wouldn't yet. That would be kind of the next step would be, like say we want to use Key Vault or something to get a secret. But that we'd have to change the code, I would imagine.
Yeah, don't do that yet.
Okay. So let's do AZ use a group create. And then I'll just grab my history and put it into a script.
Yes.
The cat cam is back.
Yeah. I wanted to show, like, check this out. Perfect little nook here for my hand. Keyboard fits right between the paws.
Excellent.
She tends to reshuffle the entire time, like on my desk. So it's like constantly like, how do we arrange the layout?
The cat accommodations, I think is what I said earlier. Is cat accommodation? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll create a resource group. Do I need a location or something? Oh, no positional parameters. Create. AZ group create -- location. West. So I'm pretty sure central. Did I spell central wrong? No. Well, I'll just do West US.
Okay.
I'm almost positive that that's valid. And then I wanted to do Rust. WASI hello.
West us for the rest of us.
I guess so. I thought for a minute I spelled Rust wrong or something. I was like,
no.
I think it's right. Although my spelling's terrible. Okay, so we've got the group. Let's go back, look at this command.
Yes.
AZAKS create -- resource group.
Did you install Adwin yet?
No.
Ha.
Oh, the history thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it pulled up forever. I just never did.
I'm still thinking you'll love it. It'll be 5 minutes well spent.
Is it win? How do you spell Adwin?
8TQIN.
Shell history.
Uh,
It'll find it.
oh, remove the W. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Oh, a lot of
I think you can even like do a brew install.
brew.
I guess not.
I just don't think it was in the brew. Yep.
Hey.
It's installed. Now I have to just use it. Fine, Nash. I've installed it.
Oh yeah. And then there's the second command, the echo.
Oh, to add it to the profile.
Yep.
Okay. Since I'm forced to use CSH now.
Reluctantly.
Yeah.
And
I
gotta say it'll like reload. And you'll find it very annoying, but then I'm sure you'll configure it.
Wasn't it?
Just like that. Creates a subshell, but
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. New shell.
Yeah. And now if you like go up, you'll like see your history. There it is.
What? But now I lost my command. I know.
No. You can there's more stuff to like source your history and stuff and etc. But yeah.
Rust, WASI, hello.
Thank you. Thank you for like 2 months of insistent negging that you'll like this. You should try it out.
Oh, I'm sure I'll love it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Enable. I don't want to enable monitoring. Let's look at the docs. No, not update. We don't trust ChatGPT. Create. There. No, not connection create. There's got to be the base create command somewhere. Oh, there it is. Whoa. That holy parameters.
What the fuck?
You see that?
Oh, this is AZ create.
Yeah, so creating the cluster. Look at all the options.
The font size is too small for me to like actually read it, but I can see it's a lot.
Yeah. The scrolling can tell you.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, I zoomed in too much that it made it so I couldn't see them. Oh, this is even easier.
Oh, that's helpful.
Generate. Where's the generate one?
Command F generate.
I was hoping there was just a copy paste example.
Oh, that might be one.
Enabled. Assigned identity. I'm trying to think about how I did this with SSH. There it is. Are there any sample? There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
Hey.
But it's got a bunch of stuff I don't care about. All right, what's the minimal? Node count. We'll do 2 node count 2. Oh, we'll try 1. Now that we're in resource constrained tenants, we'll let it pick the version, but then we'll add that. Maybe that's all we need. We'll find out. No, we need more. Unrecognized. Uh-oh, but how do I go? No.
Yes, I got you now.
Oh, see, what is Adwin used for? So it's this shell history. Is it JK? Oh no, search is tab maybe.
Search is slash.
Oh, okay.
I think if you have Vim mode on.
Probably don't by default.
Fuck. Yeah, I don't know. I think. I think you can just like type and like do a fuzzy search. But you haven't like imported your history.
Yeah, I pasted something, so then it'll search for clear. So it's just basically a history.
Yeah. It's a history command backed by what was that SQL local SQL SQLite.
Oh, okay. We had another question I missed a little bit ago. Is WASM Cloud free for anyone?
It is open source and it is made by a company. So there is a planned way thing to like, make money off it. But the base version, the actual like integration, the plugin for Kubernetes is free to use and completely open source.
Running the cluster is not free unless it's local, but they do allow. It does work on local clusters. If you wanted to use it there, there's you don't have to pay.
Wait, what?
If you have a cluster running in the cloud, like that won't be
Yeah.
free. That's my point. No matter where it's at, whatever cloud.
Isn't it just like open source?
I'm talking about Kubernetes itself. Like if you have an AKS cluster, like you're going to be paying for compute somewhere along the line.
Right.
Only point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were saying licensing fees, and I was like,
no.
is that true?
Just compute costs.
Just compute. Yeah. Also, hey, Feld. I tweeted out that we were live, and people seem to be joining, so that's cool.
Awesome. Welcome. Let's see here. Name. It didn't like my name. Does it not like hyphens?
Oh yeah, you can try run Adwin import auto if you want to like populate it.
Okay, we'll leave it for now. See if we get this one takes a little bit.
Okay.
To run. So, and once we have the cluster, we should be able to start working on the manifests. So now I've got a new thing to learn, which is good. I took like a month off of learning. I regret it because now I just feel lazy and I don't want to learn things.
That's that. How is the? Have you been hit by fall weather yet?
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
It's starting to cool down. I think today it's like 10 degrees cooler than yesterday.
I get into like hibernation mode when it like starts to cool down, days got shorter. I'm like, we're not doing anything. We are just staying in, eating food.
Yeah. Just gotta embrace it sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
Quick starts.
Oh, she's moved again. Hold on. Now that I have a setup.
We'll have
to show you my cat. I will just like keep showing you my cat. Look. Before the pause, we're like this, and now she's laughing. It's great. Yeah, it's very difficult being a cat. So you constantly gotta like reshuffle. Yeah.
Yes, this is what we needed. Okay. So once we have the cluster up, we got to run this stuff to get. So this, forget who mentioned in the chat, but let me put this in the chat. If you want to know how to install it on Kubernetes, assuming you're wanting to run it on Kubernetes, that's my assumption here. That's the doc. That's the doc for that. So that's what we'll be doing next when this builds. We'll have a couple minutes, so maybe we'll get through this and then we can kind of pick up next week. And then, yeah, we can walk through turning into Terraform and stuff, because this should all be. This is another chicken and the egg thing that we'll run into with provisioning. But we can easily sidestep it by creating a workflow. So Kubernetes does not like to be built and configured in the same pass in Terraform. Very difficult. It's like deploying it all out.
Okay.
Because then it needs to gather a bunch of stuff about the state of the cluster and then go in. And so then it'll like run over itself. It's kind of like a runtime issue. So what we'll probably do is have two separate Terraform configs, one that like provisions the cluster and then another one that configures. That's a very common pattern with Terraform, because this would all be Kubernetes configuration, this WASM Cloud stuff.
I'm still sorry. I'm still like hung up on like what? So what you're saying is like creating the infrastructure and deploying Kubernetes, whereas like, hey, we have a cluster now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is we don't know when that's done, so we don't know when to begin configuring it.
That, or it'll start to run tasks that can't quite run yet, and so you can go through a lot of hoops and try to put sleeps and waits and stuff like that. It's like writing a batch file that has to wait for other things and then trying to anticipate how long you should wait.
Yeah.
So that gets difficult to do.
The the systems programmer in me said like the term I would use for this, and this is being, I guess, not harsh, but like what you're describing sounds like Kubernetes has logical races where it does not signal the end of a thing correctly, where you
It's
can't.
more the resources in the cloud, like the provider itself, like
Okay,
all those different resources. So it
I
works
see.
better if you have the cluster built with a set of
Yes.
configs, and
Yeah.
then you can run the configuration which expects it to exist. But if you have
Okay.
creation and configuration in the same,
Okay.
there's
Right.
it's difficult.
That's so fun. That is incredibly fun.
Oh yes,
And
I tried to resolve that just so I could have one config. I spent probably a week on it, and I just gave up because it run into that same stuff that you were talking about earlier, just the inconsistencies. Like it'd work one
yeah.
run, then a third run, it would just not
Yeah.
work. So
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
I talked to
Yeah.
my friend. He works here at Microsoft. His name's Luke. He's super awesome with Terraform, and he was just like, "Yeah, don't do that. just don't. Save yourself some pain. Create two
I
configs."
I
But
want to describe this problem. So a thing I don't really talk about much, like I guess like at work, but I do is I work on the Rust programming language. Like I help, I'm not formally on the language team, but I've started like going to every meeting now. And like this right here is one of the problems I've identified like in async Rust, where it's like, hey, we can't correctly signal the end of a thing. And actually, in last week's PlumberCon meeting, conference meeting, at some point, the discussion about like the async model for like WASI or components, I was like, hey, don't do that. The part where I was like, hey, please don't do that was about this exact problem where a function may return and work may still happen afterwards. So you have a signal of like, I am done. And then, but logically, it's not done yet. Like things may still happen after that, which means you have no way, and it's not quite true for WASI, but for Rust, it kind of is right now, where you have no way of like knowing when the work is actually fully completed. And that is a big problem. And that is very pervasive in like a lot of programming languages and systems or integrations of systems like where you're describing here. So I'm like, if I could describe this problem better and like more broadly, I feel like, I don't know. There's connections I'm making where I'm like, that's interesting because I see this
yeah,
like
it's the
through in
same
many
thing, which
places.
makes sense because Terraform it's all interacting with systems.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just at a higher level. Good question. Do you think OpenTofu will replace Terraform as the mainstream infrastructure as code tool? Correct me if I'm wrong, but OpenTofu is like the fork off Terraform once they announce their new business license change, right?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know. I think over time, maybe. Um, but I think for a lot of people, Terraform, they can still use it without the business license. And so they'll probably just do that out of habit. Um, but I can see it. I can see it becoming more popular over time. People using that, especially if it's easy to move off.
Do
But
you want to try OpenTofu? Or are you
could
like,
I've never tried it just because I'm more comfortable with that. But I'm open to it. We could try that.
it'd be interesting.
Open tofu. We'll give it a try. I'll put it as a bookmark.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I like their
appreciate the
website.
recommendation.
It's pretty.
Got your yellow.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So we got that. Where are we at? Oh, we're right at time. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's pick up here. We can do this. We'll bookmark this. This is a good place to stop. Where we've got our cluster now. We'll configure it, and then we can kind of massage it in. We'll try OpenTofu.
Sounds good. Did
Yeah.
we see a cluster up and running?
Yep, it is right here. I mean,
There we
that's
go.
the output. If we go
Great.
Portal, let's see, resource groups, Rust. Got our cluster. Dun dun dun. I'd like to see it working locally too. We could do that. That'd be fun. Anyway, so we have our cluster. Next up, we'll we'll get Wasm Cloud deployed to it. Then the step after that would be moving it to OpenTofu, which would be fun. I've never used it. And then we can work on the deployment manifest for the application to be put on the cluster, which shouldn't be too bad. You just have to plug in the OCI artifact. So, because Wasm Cloud is the OCI spec compliant for the components.
Yeah, we've already like gone through the motions once. What we're doing now is automating it.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
That sounds good.
All right. We'll see everybody next Monday.
Next Monday, same time.
Same time, 9 a.m. Central, and then 4 p.m. I always forget your time zone.
It's right now Central European Summer Time.
That's a long time zone name.
CEST. Yeah. At some point we go into wintertime. I had CET. But yeah.
I'm always in Central Time.
I don't know when it's going to happen. Yeah. I'm also in Central. Like, what do you mean?
Central US.
Oh God, I'm in the Midwest of Europe. Okay, I'll see myself out.
Enjoy your cornfields.
What do we got here? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we grow. I don't know agriculture.
What the thought? I had a thought. Disappeared. Maybe it'll come back. No, not coming back.
No thoughts. That's okay.
Oh,
all right.
Yes, I will. They'll be scheduled, so you can find them. So that was what I was going to say. The nice call to action. So if you want to get notified them ahead, I know that I'm horrible about keeping track of things. So if you want an automated way to notify you, I'll make sure to get them on the AKS community channel, so you can hit the notification bell if you want, or at least see them scheduled there. Because I'm horrible. If I don't have my calendar and something in there, I'll not do it. So just helping everybody else if they struggle with the same problems that I do. But awesome. I feel like we got a good path forward, and hopefully this will be a nice artifact for people once it's built, that they can see all the different ways to deploy it. And then I think it'd be fun. I think maybe in my own time, maybe I'll hack together a Go example of it and then reference the Rust one, just so we have another language to toy with. But this is fun.
I believe if you're going to do that, TinyGo is the way to go right now.
Okay.
The Big Go isn't fully there yet. TinyGo is not fully there yet either, but it should be further along.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you. See everybody else. Thanks for joining.
See you.
Loved all the comments in the chat. Appreciate it. See ya.